I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with my girlfriend. I've already emptied our joint account. Ha ha ha. My hands didn't shake as I read the message. My voice didn't falter as I helped Mrs. Wilson finalize her deposit. The only physical sign that my husband had just destroyed our 15-year marriage via text was a faint dizziness. I waited until Mrs. Wilson left with her completed paperwork before typing my reply. Good luck. My name is Emma. I'm 37 years old, and I've just received the coldest goodbye in history. But while Nathan was likely reveling in his grand exit, imagining me crying in anguish over his betrayal, I calmly finished my workday at the bank. The signs had been obvious for months. Late nights at work that didn't line up with his paycheck, sudden password changes on his phone, his frequent trips to the gym, and new clothes purchased in a desperate attempt to reclaim his youth. 3 months ago, I saw the receipt for a dinner for 2 at an expensive restaurant on a night when he claimed he'd been working late. That evening, I opened a separate bank account at another institution. Don't bother begging. The next text came through. Ashley and I are leaving tomorrow. I'll send someone for my things later. Ashley, the bright young secretary at his office. I had met her at the corporate Christmas party. I had seen her laugh just a little too loudly at Nathan's jokes, touch his arm just a little too casually when she thought no one noticed. She was young enough to be his daughter and naive enough to believe she was special. I didn't bother replying to his message. Instead, I called my lawyer, a woman I'd consulted 2 months prior after finding hotel charges on our credit card statement. It's time, I said simply. He's made his move. The papers are ready, she replied. I'll file them first thing tomorrow. Would you like them served to him in Miami? Not just yet. Let him savor his victory first. Another message from Nathan arrived. I understand how hard this must be for you. You're not getting any younger. At least your work with clients will keep you occupied. My work with clients was the career I had built with my own dedication and effort. The same job that earned me more than Nathan ever did as a middle manager. I'd always kept my income separate from our joint finances. I smiled as I pictured the legal documents that would soon meet him in Miami. That evening, I spent time in our house, my house, the one I inherited from my grandmother and kept solely in my name despite Nathan's persistent suggestions to share ownership. Another good instinct. As I organized documents for my lawyer, I found our wedding album. Nathan had looked so different back then, before his midlife crisis had turned him into a caricature of his former self. My phone kept buzzing with his messages, each more arrogant than the last. I've been planning this for months. Ashley understands me in ways you could never. You'll be fine. Maybe you'll find someone closer to your age. I've already told my family. They agree. We've just grown apart. It's really no one's fault. I took screenshots of every message, adding them to the growing folder of evidence. Let him dig his own grave. The latest text caught my attention. By the way, I booked our flights and hotel on the joint card. Consider it a farewell gift. LOL. Perfect. I immediately called the credit card company. This is Mrs. Harrison. I need to report fraudulent transactions and have the card canceled immediately. Nathan and Ashley would arrive at the airport tomorrow, only to discover their tickets had been canceled and their hotel reservation voided. The next morning brought a flurry of angry texts from Nathan. What the hell did you do to our credit card? The airline won't accept the tickets, and the hotel canceled the reservation. Answer me! I muted his number and headed for work. Fridays were always busy, and I had a full day of clients ahead. Life goes on, even when your husband runs off with a secretary young enough to be his daughter. Around noon, Nathan's mother called me. Emma, dear, Nathan told us everything. About how controlling you were, how you pushed him away. He says you're being spiteful now, causing problems with his trip. I switched the call to speakerphone while continuing to review a client's deposit paperwork. Did he mention how he emptied our joint account and booked tickets for himself and his girlfriend on our shared credit card? Silence. Then, well, he said you gave him no choice, that you were cold and distant. Patricia, I have his text messages. Would you like me to read them aloud, the ones where he brags about draining our account? Or maybe the ones where he mocks my age? Another pause. Well, he was a little harsh. I did tell him those messages were inappropriate. I appreciate your call, Patricia. I've always been kind to you, but I think it's best we end this conversation now. My lawyer has advised me to minimize contact with Nathan's family during the proceedings. Proceedings? Already? Goodbye, Patricia. By the end of the day, Nathan's sister Sarah was spreading family drama through mutual acquaintances. Apparently, Nathan and Ashley were holed up in a cheap motel near the airport, their Miami dreams temporarily dashed. He'd tried using his personal credit cards, but they had already been maxed out for months. Just another red flag I had noticed. My lawyer called with updates. Emergency hearing scheduled for Monday. Given his admission to draining the joint account and documented credit card fraud, we have a strong case for freezing all remaining assets. Oh, and Ashley's social media posts are providing excellent evidence. She's been posting about their adventure all day, including a few comments directly targeting you. I smiled, thinking of my meticulous documentation. A year of suspicious payments, hotel receipts, and messages proving his premeditated actions. Nathan had been so focused on his grand escape, he never thought I could be watching, waiting, preparing. Monday's emergency hearing exceeded my expectations. Nathan arrived in his new youthful wardrobe, designer jeans that were far too tight for his age, and a blazer that screamed midlife crisis. Ashley waited outside, her youth painfully obvious under the courthouse's harsh fluorescent lights. My client admits to some reckless decisions, Nathan's hastily hired lawyer argued, but Mrs. Harrison's actions were retaliatory and calculated. Calculated? My lawyer countered. You mean prudent? My client protected her assets and maintained detailed records of her husband's suspicious behavior. This isn't retaliation, it's responsible financial management. The judge examined my documentation, the house deed in my sole name, the boutique registered exclusively to me, and the carefully separated finances that Nathan had always called overly cautious. Mr. Harrison, the judge addressed Nathan, you admitted via text to draining the joint account and using shared credit cards to fund your trip with your girlfriend. Do you deny this? Nathan squirmed uncomfortably. I was just trying to make a clean break. By committing financial fraud? The judge raised an eyebrow. And now you're claiming entitlement to assets clearly documented as separate property? The business grew during the marriage, Nathan's lawyer tried to argue. The business was founded before the marriage, my lawyer interrupted, and Mrs. Harrison maintained strict separation between business and personal finances throughout. We have documentation for every cent earned and spent. I watched as reality finally hit Nathan. He'd thought it would be easy. Drain the accounts, run off with his girlfriend, and maybe claim half my business in the divorce. He had never understood my insistence on separate finances, laughed at my meticulous bookkeeping as obsessive. This court finds sufficient evidence of financial misconduct, the judge declared. All joint assets will be frozen until the divorce is finalized. Mr. Harrison is ordered to return all funds withdrawn from the joint account within 24 hours. But that money's already spent, Nathan protested. We used it on... Then I suggest you find a way to reimburse it. The judge cut him off. And, Mr. Harrison, this court takes a very dim view of using joint credit cards to finance vacations with mistresses. As I left the courtroom, I overheard Ashley asking Nathan, "What do you mean you don't have money? You told me you had everything taken care of." Her voice was higher than usual, her dreams of a luxurious life in Miami crumbling like a house of cards. Within a month, the divorce was finalized. Nathan got his car, still financed, his clothes, and his personal belongings. I kept the house, the business, and the majority of our shared assets as compensation for his financial misconduct. 2 weeks later, Ashley left him when she realized that she'd traded a wealthy man for a broke, middle-aged man living in motels. My life, on the other hand, began to blossom. I enrolled in Spanish classes I'd always wanted to take. I started going to the gym, not for anyone else, but for myself. Every morning, I woke up knowing I'd made the right decision. 1 month after the divorce, Nathan looked worn down and aged when we crossed paths in court again for final asset negotiations. His lawyer tried to fight for additional property, but my documentation made it impossible. "You planned it all," Nathan said bitterly after the hearing. "You knew the whole time." "Of course I knew," I replied calmly. "I'm a banker, Nathan. Did you think I wouldn't notice your suspicious transactions? The restaurants, the jewelry stores, the gym membership, and the sudden wardrobe updates? I was just waiting for you to make your move." He stood, speechless, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "And you know what?" I added. "I'm grateful. You freed me from wasting more years on a relationship that had been dead for a long time. Now, I'm free." I turned on my heel and walked out, feeling his gaze linger on my back. Outside, the sun shined brightly, and ahead was an entire life full of new possibilities. Then, a year later, I bumped into Nathan at a supermarket. He looked older, slightly overweight, and worn out. I had just returned from a vacation in Spain, tanned and happy. We exchanged nods and went our separate ways. Mutual acquaintances say Nathan is now dating a woman his age. As for me, I'm enjoying my independence, my success, and the lesson life taught me. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply being prepared. Did you like the story? Write your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next interesting story. See you tomorrow.